Stop looking for the word Sudan on the map. It is no longer a country. It has become a title for hell. In October 2025, the last remaining army strongholds in Darfur fell, and the loss of El Fasher signifies only one thing. Sudan is being effectively split into two nations, and the Middle East is on the brink of witnessing a completely redrawn map. While the world watches, 130,000 lives have been lost. The cries of the displaced are being choked. And the one thing women search for today is not bread, but birth control pills. Yes, the catastrophe runs far deeper and is more hideous than you can possibly imagine. Who is funding this genocide? And how did a simple camel herder transform into a warlord threatening regional security? In this video, we uncover the true face of the conflict that has turned Sudan's wealth from gold into devastation. Watch until the end to learn about the 5 scenarios for partition and their direct impact on you. And so, as we saw with the data, by October 2025, Sudan had ceased to be a country. Today, it stands as a mere label for war, famine, and blood. The army stands on one side, the rapid support forces on the other, and the civilians are caught in the middle, dying every day without cause. Cities once vibrant with life, such as Khartoum and Omdurman, now lie ruined. Darfur has once again become a hell on earth. And El Fasher, the city that was a symbol of steadfast resistance, has become the emblem of utter devastation. The world is watching, yet remains silent. Perhaps it has simply grown weary of hearing the word Sudan. This is not just a war over territory. This is a war on identity, on history, and on the very idea of the state itself. Therefore, my dear viewer, if you truly want to know more about what is unfolding in Sudan, you must stay tuned and follow this video until the very end. But before we dive in, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. The current conflict in Sudan has triggered a devastating humanitarian catastrophe marked by a painfully volatile human cost. Conflicting reports estimate the death toll to be between roughly 20,000 and 130,000 casualties, while over 15 million people have been forcibly displaced internally or fled as refugees. The nation is grappling with a severe humanitarian crisis. With approximately 25 million people, half the population, facing critical hunger and dire need for aid, leading to documented deaths from malnutrition in besieged areas like El Fasher. Furthermore, the health system is near collapse, with over 80% of hospitals damaged, fueling the spread of lethal epidemics like cholera, all set against a backdrop of grave human rights violations, including widespread sexual violence and murder. The announcement came down with crushing finality. Citizens, the Sudanese army, led by the 6th Infantry Division, has evacuated its headquarters and withdrawn to other positions west of the city. El Fasher, my friend, was the last true fortress of the Sudanese army in Darfur. Its fall to the hands of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, has completely tipped the scales and could well be the start of a new partition for the country, years after the secession of the South. The situation there is catastrophic. Hospitals are either destroyed or converted into shelters for the displaced. Electricity is cut, and people are desperately fleeing death. The United Nations reported that more than 26,000 people abandoned their homes in a matter of days, and rights organizations are warning of an imminent humanitarian disaster. The city that was once a symbol of Darfur is now a symbol of hell. The RSF entered after a long siege and committed atrocities that organizations have described as more horrifying than what occurred in Gaza. People are being executed in gruesome ways hanged from trees, forced to dig their own graves, and rape has become a systematic weapon of war. This is why the one thing people are searching for most is not food or water, but birth control pills. What is happening in Darfur today is not just a war. It is a slow-motion genocide, a conflict that has escalated beyond a struggle for power and become an existential crisis that is tearing an entire society apart from the inside. However, this story did not begin today. Its roots trace back to the aftermath of the 2019 Sudanese revolution, when Omar al-Bashir was toppled and the hope for a new democracy first flickered into life. That hope was tragically short-lived. Power was divided between the army, led by al-Burhan, and the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, led by Hemedti. The fundamental rift emerged when the army demanded the integration of the RSF into the regular military within 2 years, a request Hemedti flatly rejected, pushing for a 10-year delay instead. This simmering disagreement exploded in April 2023, escalating into the most brutal civil war in modern Sudanese history. Hemedti himself has a bizarre trajectory. A simple camel herder with Chadian roots who migrated to Darfur in the 1980s fleeing drought. Over time, he became a tribal leader. With support from al-Bashir, he gathered armed young men known as the Janjaweed, which the regime used to brutally suppress the Darfur rebellion in the mid-2000s with excessive savagery. Following these massacres, al-Bashir rewarded him, making him responsible for the Janjaweed and formalizing them into a new official entity called the Rapid Support Forces RSF. This force quickly became a parallel power to the army, with its own independent funding, weapons, and authority. As time passed, Hemedti only grew richer and more powerful, particularly after seizing control of massive gold mines. He began constructing a vast financial empire, managing billions annually through the smuggling of gold and weapons. Crucially, after the fall of al-Bashir, the country entered a new phase, but the RSF remained a fully independent force, and the army failed to establish complete control. With the start of the war in 2023, Hemedti exploited the nation's chaos and began expanding his influence westward until he controlled most of Darfur, an area representing more than a quarter of Sudan's landmass. El Fasher was the army's final bastion there, and its collapse means that Darfur is now entirely outside the control of the central state. Thus, Sudan has effectively been partitioned into 2 nations, East and West. The worst part is that the West is now under the control of an armed militia, funded by billions, bordering Egypt, Libya, Chad, and the Central African Republic, all highly sensitive security regions. A question must surely be on your mind, my friend. How is Hemedti still able to sustain and fund a war of this ferocity after everything that has happened? The answer is both clear and painful. The funding is coming from abroad, specifically from the UAE. This is not rumor or speculation. These are documented international reports. The support arrives in the form of money, weapons, and even mercenaries. The UAE, my friend, sees Hemedti as a regional pressure card that guarantees its influence in Sudan, especially in the areas rich with gold and minerals. It uses him as a tool to secure its economic and political interests deep in the heart of the continent. The Sudanese army itself formally complained against the UAE, accusing it of participating in the Darfur genocide. But the case was dismissed by the International Court of Justice on procedural grounds. The investigations published by the French newspaper Le Monde Diplomatique sharpened the picture further, asserting that the UAE was facilitating the smuggling of Sudanese gold in cooperation with Hemedti, This gold was then routed into a massive money laundering operation that fuels this very war. Now, the situation has truly exploded. The RSF has announced control over the 6th Infantry Brigade in El Fasher, the Army's last base there. The city has been reduced to rubble. Bodies litter the streets, hospitals are destroyed, and people are fleeing like terrified birds. The world watches in silence, as if blind, as if this massacre simply isn't happening. But the truth runs deeper than a mere civil war. What is happening in Sudan is the redrawing of the map itself. Darfur is no longer just a rebellious region. It has become the nucleus of a new reality that could shift the balance of power across the entire Middle East. Here are the scenarios for partition. The division scenarios. Scenario 1. The de facto partition of the state. If Darfur formally breaks away from Khartoum's authority, Sudan will be split into 2 states, an east controlled by the army and a west in the hands of the RSF. This signifies the collapse of the centralized state and opens the door to further fragmentation based on tribal and regional loyalties. Scenario 2. The self-funded armed entity Darfur could become a de facto state with its own resources, gold, minerals, and limited oil, and smuggling routes. It could then buy allegiances and import weapons, transforming into an independent financial and military power capable of igniting proxy conflicts across the region. Scenario 3. The foreign sphere of influence. This new entity might find official foreign backers, states, corporations, or militias that supply it with money and arms in exchange for loyalty and influence. Darfur would then become an open theater for settling scores between regional powers. And the impact will not stop at Sudan's borders. Egypt itself will be directly affected. Its southern borders could become a corridor for the smuggling of weapons and fighters, and the proliferation of criminal gangs. Furthermore, there is the threat to the Nile's water resources, as this partition could give rise to new regimes near the headwaters and groundwater reserves, opening the door to massive problems for Egyptian water security. Economically, the smuggling of gold and minerals will destroy Khartoum's legitimate resources, diverting Sudan's wealth into parallel pockets. The black market will boom, international investment will plummet, and crucial trade routes passing through Sudan will collapse. So, my friend, what do you think will happen? This concludes our episode for today. I'll be waiting for your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you get all our new content. Peace.